this is not only fighting evil, this is fighting insanity. And I'm not just being hyperbolic here. When you are actually trying to convince people that a boy could be a girl, you are insane and also evil. I love your comment. I know that was a bit of a rant. I love your comments on that, because the saint that steps up against this stuff, this is going to require some, in my mind, I think even more courage than some of the saints we're talking about.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. I liked the rant. I agree. G.K. Chesterton made a really interesting observation about madness. He said that we need a healthy balance between reason and imagination to protect against madness for our mental health and for our spiritual health. Because he said, without imagination, if all we have is reason and we are, like a circle, able to able to use words and create a narrative that we feel like fits some kind of scheme of logic without imagination, that is how a man goes mad and falls for some of these beliefs. So, we've touched on some of the miraculous and some of the mystical aspects of the saints' stories. I am convinced now more than ever that it is not, it's not the social science research that is going to save the church. As fascinating as I find that, by the way, it always fascinates me that the social science research always validates, always confirms that, living a good and holy life and following the moral law and the natural law is what makes a person, flourish, having a family, staying in a marriage, having marriage within a family. But it's not the social science research that is going to convert hearts and is going to, that is going to compel people to respond to a higher power, and to proactively help others see the madness in the culture. It is the imagination. It is that place that where we go in our minds when we start thinking about, wow, Saint Joan of Arc, when this very skilled executioner, when they burned her at the stake, her body burned, but her heart was so close to the Sacred Heart of Jesus that her heart was fully intact and blood was fully inside of her heart when she died, and the executioner could not. In fact, he ran away. He was terrified, absolutely terrified, when he realized he couldn't burn her heart. We think about, the story of Fatima. The story of Fatima has been really important to my family. I actually named our youngest daughter Lucia, because the story of Our Lady appearing and being seen by 70,000 people in Portugal, not all Catholics, obviously, but that story was so well documented, and that's a modern day story. And Our Lady of Fatima has converted the hearts of so many people.
I use
For
Fatima, Kimberly,
generations
just to
now.
cut you off. I use Fatima to argue with atheists and Protestants,
I see why.
because they make the same arguments. They make the same arguments. But go ahead. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Yeah,
But
but I think, but when it comes to madness, I think we're answering the world's objections using the world's questions and then trying to conform our answers to their worldly materialist questions, right? We need to break through that. We need to use our freedom, to see the supernatural, to see the mystical, to see that Christ really did become human, in order to suffer at the hands of men and die and rise for us. And that the church really is there to guide us, and that the saints really are in heaven to intercede for us. And that is how we are going to cut through the insanity, not on the world's terms, not going back, not going round and round in the circle of logic and these strange narratives that they can come up with.
no, absolutely. I'm going to hand it over to Joe for the last couple minutes, Kimberly. But I would say this: if we used our imagination to understand that and you mentioned order, if we would think about that, Jesus is Logos made flesh. Okay, the eternal Word is the eternal Logos. Then it will open our imagination to understand that what we're fighting against at the end of the day is anti-Logos, which is obviously anti-Christ, okay? Because we know the Logos is Christ. And your book is about having the courage to simply say that. And that's why we're happy that you wrote your book, Unbreakable, Saints Who Inspired Saints to Moral Courage. Please